everybody, check it out! Swords! Oh my god, I love to talk about swords. I mean, who doesn't like to talk about swords? There's swords, right? Not shields. Shields suck. Anybody that uses a shield, whatever. Old Tony in Isekai D&D, he's gonna throw away his shield in the next episode. Protection, what's that? No, it's gotta be all swords all the time. Okay. You know what's actually really disappointing is when I was setting up this video on top of grabbing the swords, I was getting like, I was looking through my figurine collection because obviously if you're a One Piece YouTuber, you have to have a whole shelf filled with One Piece figurines, obviously. There are disappointingly few marine figures, I have noticed. The only one I have is Aokiji, which, in this version of Aokiji, he's actually not even a marine anymore, so it doesn't really count, although he might have connections with Sword, even though he may no longer be part of the Marines proper, so I guess he still counts. But, like, barely, you know what I mean? Actually, I remember when Rustage was staying here, he mentioned that he really wanted to find a Kobe figurine. Like, because Rustage really likes Kobe. I don't know if you guys knew that, but he just does. It's like his favorite One Piece character is Kobe. You can kind of tell that with Cyril in the One Piece D&D. But anyway, yeah. So if anybody ever finds a Kobe figurine, send it to Rustage for the love of God. All right. Well, anyway, today we're going to be covering Sword, and I'm excited on top of just talking about swords because, like, this was like a secret organization inside the Marines that was just kind of mentioned in passing in one of the chapters, one of the in-between chapters between, I think, Act 2 and Act 3 of Wano. It was revealed that Drake was a member of this secret organization. Kobe was also a member, and then that was it. That's all the information we got about it. It was some secret organization. What's its goal? We assume the goal is to infiltrate various Yonko crews and, like, destroy them from within or, like, stab them from within with a sword, So, like, Drake was infiltrating Kaido's crew. And when you really think about, like, the level of infiltration he had to do, like, he couldn't just go from being a Marine to joining Kaido's crew and be trusted. Like, literally, Drake had to give up a good chunk of his life, and I'm sure there's probably a bulk of Marines that still believe him to be a traitor, like, straight up. Like, we don't exactly know the situation of how Drake left the Marines, but he was a rear admiral. I like to think that he was approached by, like, the founder of Sword, whether that be Sengoku or Garp. I could kind of see it from both of them. Maybe it was Sengoku and Garp working together. Maybe it was Kong, for all we know, right? Anyway, they approach Drake, and they're like, we have a special mission for you, Drake. And he's like, well, what? And he's like, well, we're going to need you to infiltrate Kaido's beast pirates and figure out a way to take them down from within. And Drake's like, well, how am I supposed to do that? He's like, yeah, that's the tough part. We're going to have you be a traitor of the Marines. You're going to have to go out there, become a pirate, make a name for yourself as a pirate, and then eventually worm your way into the beast pirates like Stronghold. Okay, so this was a plan. The level of subterfuge here, the level of shenanigans that Drake had to pull, like years and years dedicated to this one task, right? And at the end of the day, did he really accomplish much? Like, I'm just saying, if Drake's main mission as a member of Sword, as a captain of Sword, if his mission was to infiltrate the Beast Pirates in order to figure out a way to bring Kaido down, can we really say he's succeeded? I mean, yes, Kaido's no longer around, but, like, none of that had to do with Drake, is the sad thing. Like, Luffy would have, like, regardless of whether or not Drake was there, Luffy would have still formed the alliance with the samurai and with the minks and everybody. They would have attacked Onigashima regardless. Kid and Law would have been there regardless. Luffy went into Gear 5th regardless. Cypher Pole Zero would have been there regardless. And it's just like, it feels like Drake is, like, in the background, like, okay, I have a plan, but oh crap, it failed. And then, we don't actually know where he's at right now. He was defeated by one of the Cypher Pole Zero agents. He's not dead. He's out there somewhere in the world. But, yeah, he didn't really, like, he took down one of the numbers, so that's cool, I guess. And he, like, almost took down one of the Cypher Pole Zero agents, but he didn't. He actually ended up losing that fight, like, straight up. He just lost that fight. So actually thinking about it a little more, it was in fact Drake that freed Law from prison. So I guess you could say that if it wasn't for Drake being there, then Law would not have gotten out and he therefore would not be able to fight. But I don't know. I mean, this is law, ladies and gentlemen. I feel like he could have figured out some way to escape the prison by himself, or somebody else could have freed him. You know, his crew could have saved him. I just feel like Drake, like, if his main goal was to be there to defeat Kaido, he really did not contribute much to that. But he's a dinosaur, so that accounts for something, right? So I bet Drake is, honestly, wherever Drake is at right now, he might just be feeling a massive amount of just, like, disappointment. Like, he might just be depressed wherever he is. Just like, I gave up years of my life. I like to think the way that he left the Marines was he killed a crew member. Like, maybe he straight up did. Maybe it wasn't even, like, play acting or whatever. Maybe he literally killed his second in command on a ship or something, and they're like, Rear Admiral Drake is a traitor, just like his dad, because Diaz Barrels, who is Drake's father, was also a Marine at one point that left for the pirate life, and he ended up getting the op fruit, right? So that actually makes sense if Drake was approached by the founder of Sword. Let's just say it was Garp or Sengoku or Kong or somebody approaches Drake. Like, you are actually the perfect person to do this. If any of the Marines are believably to turn traitor and go out and be a pirate, it would be you, because your father did the same thing. And that's kind of a messed up thing to say to somebody, by the way. Like, hey, Drake, your father was a no-good traitor. He's like, yeah, I know, but I'm not a traitor. I'm here for the Marines. I'm here for the cause. Actually, we need you to be a traitor. And just like, oh, come on, you know what I mean? But it's for the greater good. Like, okay, it's for the greater good. So I like to think he assassinated or killed one of his crewmates, and he was branded a traitor, and then he left the Marines, and he was red flag Diaz Drake, the red flag representing, like, you are a traitor, and then he had his own ship, the Liberal Hind, and he built up his pirate crew. I mean, this took a long time to get to the Sabodari Archipelago and then become a supernova and then go into the New World, 2 years there, and then finally became a member of Kaido's crew. And he's like, okay, I had to sacrifice everything to get to this point. I'm gonna bring down Kaido. And I mean, like, okay, I'm sure he provided some nice intel to the Marines, like, via Kobe. Like, he explained, like, Kaido's home base is on Onigashima. Oh, that's good news. Write that down, write that down. Kaido could also turn into a giant dragon. Oh, we already knew that, but write that down, write that down. You know what I mean? And he's providing intel, but at the end of the day, Luffy just burst in and, like, let's fight. And then, like, well, a lot of people fought him, and they ended up, winning. But Drake, he might just be like, I was no help in that battle whatsoever. I took down some random riffraff and one of the numbers. That's what I traded my whole life away for, basically. I hope you're proud, Dad. Like, seriously. So, we don't know what's up with Drake. Now, I think I finally did realize, though, the situation with, like, okay, Drake was a rear admiral, but then he left, but he was the captain of Sword. So, these are the current members of Sword that we know of from the last chapter, okay? We've got introduced to 3 new members in the last chapter. We assume that since Kobe was a member, Helmeppo was probably a member as well. By the way, we're going to get back to Helmeppo. There's actually a lot of stuff to unpack with him. But anyway, yeah, so it was confirmed Helmeppo is 100% a Sword member. Also, we get introduced to a new Rear Admiral named Prince Groose. We actually got to see him a little earlier during Beiji's cover story, but here he's properly introduced. And his little squad of Marines, we have like 3 big muscular Marines that are hanging out around him. There's also a lady Marine that uses like some kind of staff weapon. And so he's a member. And then also we have Hibari, who is a commander in the Marines who is like a friend of Kobe. She's the one that says, oh, Kobe Senpai's in trouble. So we have Drake, let's just say he is the captain, and then we have the 4 members that work under Drake, all right? I was a little confused by this because I was thinking, like, maybe the ranks of the Sword unit are the same as in the Marine ranks, but that's not the same thing. And it's not like Helmeppo and Kobe and Hibari and Prince Groose have individual ranks in Sword. It might just literally be like, okay, Drake is your captain, and he has like 4 or 5 people that he, orders around. And that's Prince Groose, Hibari, Kobe, and Helmeppo, okay? Maybe there's some other groups of Sword. Maybe Aokiji leads up a unit. Maybe Garp has his own little unit. But it's nothing like that. It's just like, okay, it's because the whole point of this, it's secret operations. It's like Black Ops kind of shit, you know what I mean? So you want to make sure to keep this on the down low so you can't have like a bunch of of Marines, like, out of all of the Marines, 3,000 of them are members of Sword. That's not that. It's going to be probably a number of less than 20 maximum, like everybody in Sword, but that's just my assumption there, okay? So let's talk about the new characters a little bit there. So we have Hibari. Hibari was right next to Helmeppo when they were pleading with Prince Groose, please, you have to go help Kobe. Now, with Helmeppo, it makes sense because Kobe is like his best friend, okay? Hibari, on the other hand, we've never met her before. She's a Marine commander, so she actually outranks Helmeppo. What I like to think about her is that she was a member of Sword before Kobe joined, or I guess after Kobe joined, because she refers to him as senpai, although that might just be because Kobe is a captain and she's a commander, and that's like the rank below captain, so maybe she just views him as senpai like that. So I think of one of two situations. Situation number one, Kobe joins Sword first, and then Hibari is like the new recruit. Like, she's just a brand new member to Sword, okay? And so she was just enlisted into this secret operation unit, right? And she's like plucky and happy and excited, like, yeah, I'm gonna do my best to be a Marine in Sword. I'm a secret agent, And then Kobe sort of was like, her senpai, essentially. Like, oh, I'll show you the ropes around Sword. This is what you're going to do to help the Marines. And maybe Hibari fell for Kobe. I kind of ship Kobe with Rebecca. That was kind of what I was doing already because Kobe has pink hair, Rebecca has pink hair. There was some vibes there when they met each other heading to Reverie, so I'm kind of shipping Kobe and Rebecca right now. But Hibari, I mean, we don't know much about her, okay? But so I think that's one of the scenarios, like she's just the newest member of Sword, even though she's higher ranked than Helmeppo in the regular Marines. The other option is, remember, Kobe, he had his own ship. He was a captain. We even see it, the big ship with the sail that says Kobe on it, right? So what if Hibari was just the commander on the ship? We assume that Kobe was like the captain, like the first in command of his own ship, and then Helmeppo would have been the second in command right after him because they're such close friends, but Hibari might have been a member already, and she might have been the proper second in command, and then it went Helmeppo. Helmeppo is a lieutenant commander, okay, which is, I believe, the highest rank of lieutenant. Yeah, it's like lieutenant junior, and then just regular lieutenant. That's what full body was, and then there's lieutenant commander, then there's commander, then there's captain, okay, and I'll throw up the chart. Thank God I made this Marine hierarchy chart with all the different ranks. This thing is really pulling its weight as of late, okay? Anywho, so they're talking to Prince Groose. Prince Groose, as I mentioned, was a character that was already previously shown during Beiji's cover story, although he doesn't have any lines, not surprising. Most cover stories don't have a lot of dialogue. That's kind of the whole point. But he's the Marine that went to Dressrosa to bring in Beiji. He actually defeated Gotti fairly easily. Gotti, I think, had a bounty of like 90-something million. It was up there. I don't think it was over 100 million, but it was up there. One of the higher-ranking members of the Fire Tank crew. I think it went Gotti, and then Vito was the second in command, and then Beiji was like the highest. He was the captain, obviously, right? So, yeah, Groose seemed to defeat him with very minimal effort. Keep in mind, he is a rear admiral. That's a very high rank in the Marines. Essentially, it is the second highest rank that most Marines can hope to achieve. And I've gone over this before, but I'll just go over it again. We have the Fleet Admiral, which is the head of the entire Marines. That is not a rank you can just achieve, okay? Only one person can have that rank at any given time to keep the structure, stable and all that stuff. And it's essentially a rank that has to be filled by an admiral, and it has to be approved by the commander-in-chief, who is Kong, probably has to be approved by the Gorosei as well. Like, you can't just rise through the ranks. Even if you're a really strong Marine, becoming Fleet Admiral, that is a big deal. Same thing with the regular admirals. There can only be a set number of them. 3. That's it. No more, no less. Has to be 3 admirals, okay? Once again, and also, they're directly under the thumb of the Tenryubito. That's the whole point. If someone strikes, attacks, or does anything to a Tenryubito, then an admiral has to come, okay? So that's the reason Garp never wanted to be an admiral, all right? So those are ranks that are only filled under very careful consideration. Probably a lot of people have to sign off on that. Kong, the Gorosei have to sign off on who's going to become the next admiral, and then Fleet Admiral beyond that. So when it comes to the highest rank in the Marines that most Marines can just get through the regular, promotional structure. Like, you did really good, Captain. You're promoted to Commander. Commander punishment. You have been promoted to Corporal punishment. There's no corporals in the Marines, but I just wanted to make that joke. R.I.P. Trevor Moore. Anyway, so it's like, okay, Commander, you've been promoted to Commodore. Now you've been promoted to Rear Admiral. Now you've been promoted to Vice Admiral. Unless there's something else that happens, one of the admirals retires or dies or defects or does something like that, and even then it's no guarantee. Most notably, you would assume that the next admiral would be taken from the ranks of vice admiral, but not necessarily. Aramaki and Isho, Fujitora and Greenbull were both not members of the Marines proper. They were drafted after the fact, which leads to a bunch of other questions, right? Like, what were they doing before if they weren't part of the Marines already? What were they doing? I think Isho was just out there in the world as just like a hermit, like a blind swordsman that just maybe knew Akainu, and then, he recruited him. And I don't know what the situation with Aramaki is or whatever. But anyway, yeah. So you would think that, but no, they were promoted from outside of the Marines altogether with that world military draft, okay? They weren't taken from the ranks of Vice Admiral, okay? So yeah, Vice Admiral is pretty much the highest rank you can achieve. And for that reason, there's a lot of Vice Admirals in One Piece. I think it's the most numerous Marine rank out of all of them. There's a lot of captains too, but I think Vice Admiral, there's more of them. In fact, we just got introduced to another Vice Admiral in the last chapter, Doll, who... Wait, I might just make a dedicated video on Doll. She's had like 3 lines of dialogue, but, she has a spiked collar and she's sexy. I'm sorry, okay? Whatever. Dedicated Doll video. All right. But anyway, yeah, so she's a Vice Admiral as well, right? Also, a lot of Vice Admirals have the same naming scheme as the Admirals. We have Momosagi, who was the Peach Rabbit, and then Chaton, who was Brown Pig, and then we had Kurouma, who was Black Horse, that we got introduced to recently, okay? So, yeah, out of all of the Marine ranks, Vice Admiral's the highest that you could hope to achieve under normal circumstances. Therefore, Rear Admiral is the second highest rank you can hope to achieve. So let's not overlook, first of all, let's not overlook Drake's abilities. He is a dinosaur. He is pretty strong. He just went up against some really powerful opponents at, Wano. What can you do? And then we have Prince Groose as well. Hina is also a Rear Admiral at the moment. Remember back when there was that little bit of an error when Kobe was actually shown when we found out Sword's existence? It was erroneously stated that Kobe was a Rear Admiral in the Marines. That blew my mind because Kobe rose through the ranks really fast. He went from being a chore boy to being a Master Chief Petty Officer within like a few months, but Garp was training him, so that sort of made sense. But then over 2 years, he goes from a Master Chief Petty Officer to a Captain. That is a huge leap. And then I thought he went from Captain, skipping over like, 2 other ranks to arrive at Rear Admiral. Holy crap, that's a big deal, you know what I mean? So I'm glad that they actually went back and changed it like that was an error, because like jumping to Rear Admiral, I mean, you're pretty powerful at that point, which makes sense why Helmeppo and Hibari were so like pleading with Prince Groose. Like, Prince Groose, you could do this. If we all charge against the Hachinosu, against the Beehive, we can take care of this. We can get him back, right? Also, kind of brings up, I had a theory that maybe Kobe went with Blackbeard as part of a Sword mission. Like, Sword's whole deal, I thought, was to, like, get into the ranks of a Yonko, learn their weaknesses, and, like, ruin them from within. Take them down from the inside, And so that would make sense if maybe that is still what Kobe's doing, but the rest of Sword don't know about it. Drake might, because Drake is a captain, and Prince Groose might be the same rank as, like, Kobe and Hibari and Helmeppo in this sense. You know what I mean? Like, so he might not know any more information, but he is still a Rear Admiral. So he's really level-headed with this. He's like, guys, I understand you want to go rescue Kobe, but you're asking us to just go stick our faces in an active beehive, which is the Hachinosu. You know how many pirates we would have to contend with? Hundreds, maybe thousands, plus Blackbeard himself, who's a Yonko, who's the only person in recorded history to have 2 Devil Fruit powers, one of which being the former Devil Fruit of the strongest man in the entire world. The other one is an ability that we don't even know how that freaking thing works. The Yami Yami no Mi, it can suck people up, it can spit people out, it can absorb Devil Fruit powers. So, no, Prince Groose is 100% right when he's like, going in there would just be a horrible idea, just charging in to bring Kobe back. awful idea. That's kind of like what Moria did, and look what happened to him. And Moria was no slouch. I mean, he wasn't like the strongest character in One Piece, but Moria had a pretty damn powerful devil fruit. He had an army of zombies attacking him, a nice-sized boat, you know, and look what happened to him. Actually, we don't know what happened to him, but something happened to him, right? Absalom's dead. Maybe Moria's dead or working for Blackbeard, one or the other. Not a good idea just to charge in, all right? So I also like to think the same situation, how like Kobe and Helmeppo and Hibari are members of Sword. Prince Groos's little group, his little clique that he had, so like his 3 muscle marines and that one lady, I think they're all members of Sword as well. Because that was a question I had for a while, like, you know, do regular Marines, are they aware of the existence of Sword? Because Tashigi and Dahl were both at G14, the Marine base, and, you know, there were conversations about Sword going on, and Dahl and Tashigi were not mentioned in their little placards, in their little title cards, to be members of Sword. Somebody did bring up, he's like, well, you know, they were in another room, so maybe they just didn't hear about the conversation, but the thing that Dahl said was like Helmeppo kept bugging her, you know, like, you know, please, Dahl, you have to send your Marines to the Hachinosu. So I guess Helmeppo was like bugging Dahl about it, and then she just finally had enough of that and just walked out, and then went over to Tashigi and was like, Tashigi, can you say something to this guy, please? He's annoying the shit out of me today. And Tashigi's like, I can't really, I mean, they're worried about their captain or whatever, right? But yeah, I guess that conversation could have just been in general, like, you know, I'm a Marine, you're a Marine, let's go save another Marine, right? They didn't actually have to mention Sword in any context. It might have just been like, okay, we know we're members of Sword. We're not going to say it to anybody else, but we know, like Prince Groose knows that Helmeppo and Hibari are both members, right? Whatever. So yeah, let's talk about Helmeppo right now, actually, because I have a lot of stuff to say about him. Okay, Helmeppo's journey. I love underdog characters, and I love characters that have a really good, like, character development from, like, oh my god, this character is shit at the beginning, but then throughout the story, like, the author actually does stuff with them, and Helmeppo is a perfect example of that. Helmeppo was this sniveling daddy's boy at like the beginning of the story, one of the first story arcs, where he was living on the Marine base and he was just like, ah, yes, my father, Captain Morgan, he is the strongest man on the island. No one can oppose him, for he is a Marine captain, and I am his son. I can do whatever I want here. I can sick my rabid wolf in the town and wreck a restaurant and terrify children. It does not matter, for I am Helmeppo. You know what I mean? I don't know what the hell voice I just did, but okay. Like, remember when Rina, the little kid from the village, brought Zoro the rice ball, you know, and then, you know, Helmeppo showed up and, like, slapped it out of her hand and then stepped on it. Like, my god, this guy is an asshole, right? And it's like, okay, Luffy punches him at one point, and we're like, yeah, right? He holds Kobe at hammer gun points. You know, he's just a general, he's just, like, this really whiny kind of character. You know he's not strong, he's just annoying, right? And it's like, man, I'm never gonna give a crap about this character. And in the hands of another mangaka, that literally might just be the beginning and end of Helmeppo's character. You know what I mean? Like, okay, at the beginning of the story, there's this annoying rich kid that's just like, oh, yes, my father, you know, whatever, and nothing else. But you know what? Oda actually runs with this, and I give him mad respect for that. After the events of the Shellstown arc, Helmeppo, he's not, like, immediately redeemed or anything. It's not like Helmeppo is like, I'm a good guy now. No, Helmeppo, you know, his choices were probably to just leave the island and live in poverty because he was useless without his father around to protect him and provide for him. He did not know how to survive on his own, right? The other option was be a chore boy at the Marine base where his father used to work under Commander Ripper. Now, Kobe was offered the same position. Kobe is ecstatic because he always wanted to be a Marine. He'll start from the bottom up if he has to, right? He'll plunge the toilets, he'll mop up the puke, he'll do whatever, right? You know? And Helmeppo, so it's like the perfect opposites here, where Kobe is like excited to be a member of the Marines. Helmeppo is like, I hate this. I used to live in high society, and now I'm mopping up the puke. Oh, good lord. You know what I mean? Like, that's Helmeppo. And I can imagine, like, Kobe tries to be friends with Helmeppo on so many occasions, right? Like, Helmeppo, come on, wake up. It's time for us to dig out the latrines. And I'm like, I don't want to. Like, get away. Kind of like SpongeBob and Squidward a little bit there, right? But then the big major turning point of his life occurs when Captain Morgan is officially court-martialed. Garp shows up to take him back to HQ. Morgan attacks him, tries to get away with Helmeppo as a hostage. Helmeppo finally stands up to his dad. And I did a whole dedicated video on Helmeppo, so you can go check that out there. But he finally stands up to his dad, and he's just like, you know what, father? I've always hated you. You've been always a horrible dad. You know what I mean? He's like shaking. He's like, ah. And he finally realizes that, you know what? Kobe is my friend. Even despite how much I've whined and complained, and I hate the Marines, I hate working as a damn chore boy, he never gave up on me. In fact, he even risked his life to save me. And that was the turning point. And then Garp enlisted them like, you two got moxie or whatever. And then Garp trains them to get stronger, you know what I mean? And it's fabulous. And I love it. And now they're like best friends. They're like best buds. And we saw that at Marineford when Kobe, you know, he was all stressed out. He just awoken to his observation hockey. So he was literally hearing the voices of 1,000 Marines as they all go silent all at once. And so Kobe's having a damn anxiety attack and he's freaking out. And then there's the whole thing with him standing in front of Akainu, and then Shanks saves him, and he's like, oh my god. And then Helmeppo is just holding him and just holding his buddy and be like, it's okay, Kobe, we're gonna make it through this. Oh my god, you're the only friend I've ever had in my entire life. You know what I mean? Like, seriously. And that's how, and then 2 years go by, they get promoted, Kobe becomes a captain. Helmeppo's not quite at the same rank that his father was, but he's getting close. He's 1 rank behind. He's lieutenant, no, 2 ranks behind. So he's lieutenant commander right now, then he'll be a commander next, and then he'll be a captain after that, okay? And so then he'll be, I think that's what's going to happen with Helmeppo by the end of the story. I think Kobe might be, so Kobe wants to be an admiral, right? Like, that's his ultimate goal. I don't think Kobe's going to be an admiral by the end of the story because he's still pretty young. He's still like 18 years old or whatever. So I don't think it's possible for him to become an admiral right now. I think actually Smoker, more than anybody, might have a chance at becoming an admiral. But at some point, maybe we'll have like a flash forward into the future. Kobe might be an admiral like in his late 40s, and then we'll have maybe Captain Helmeppo, or maybe 1 rank higher, maybe Commodore Helmeppo. It's like, so he's even achieved a higher rank than his father ever did. I think that's going to be Helmeppo's journey, okay? And then we see it here in this chapter, you know, chapter 1061, where alongside Hibari, he's begging, you know, and he's a lieutenant commander. That is a fairly high rank in the Marines. And he is on his knees begging, crying for Groose or Dahl or anybody to help his friend, because he knows that if Kobe dies, like, Helmeppo, like, what does he have in the Marines otherwise, right? Like, that was their whole dream, to work together, to rise through the ranks. Kobe's like, I'm gonna be an admiral. And Helmeppo's dream was probably like, well, okay, Kobe, if you're gonna be an admiral, then I don't think I could be an admiral, but I'm going to at least achieve captain. I'm going to be a higher rank than my dad, you know, yeah. And then that was their dreams and stuff like that. And if one of them dies, I mean, like, you know, there's no point without, like, having, you know, your friend with you, your best friend with you, right? So, yeah, I really like Helmeppo's character development throughout this story. He doesn't show up that often. He's still kind of played for comic relief. He has the Kukiri knives he fights with. He's not, like, anything to write home about or anything. Okay, here's a question. Here is a question for you all. Which character in the One Piece world do you think Helmeppo has a fair shot of beating? And I'm not talking about, like, random soldiers, random mountain bandits or whatever. Like Higama. Helmeppo could take Higama. Well, of course he could take Higama. Anybody could take Higama at this point, right? But who was, like, a strong character? Like, let's see here. Do you think Helmeppo could take Don Krieg? Let's use that. How about Don Krieg or Kuro? Okay? Or how about Captain Morgan? Do you think Helmeppo, as he is right now with his Kukiri knives, maybe rudimentary observation hockey, I think it's implied he has observation, but it's not nearly as good as Kobe's, but it's like he's learning. You know, he's just an average dude. That's all he is. You know, he doesn't have some crazy power. He doesn't have a devil fruit. He's not, like, super spec'd out on one type of hockey or anything. All he's got is his wits, his training, but it was training by Garp, so let's not, like, undersell that at all, okay? Garp trained him personally, all right? And also, Bogart as well. Bogart is like Garp's second-hand man, which I hope we actually learn more about Bogart because he's pretty cool. But anyway, yeah. Do you think Helmeppo could take out Captain Morgan or Kuro or Krieg? You know, Arlong is Oh, that would be kind of rough. I don't think Helmeppo could take out Arlong, but maybe Kuro or Krieg, as we saw them in the, the Syrup Village arc and the Baratier arc, respectively. Maybe those characters. But yeah, let me know about that. Let me know about that. And also, side point of that, how do you think Kobe would fare? Which is like the strongest character? I think Kobe could definitely take out Arlong. I think he's well stronger than Arlong at this point. Could Kobe? You know what? Luffy would definitely win. But how long do you think Kobe could last against Luffy right now? That's a good question. Now, obviously, if Luffy went into Gear 4th, King Kong gun, oh no, why stop, please, let's stop Luffy. Like Gear 5th, it's like, Monkey God gun, I don't think anything like that. But barring Gear 3rd, Gear 4th, and Gear 5th, do you think Kobe could keep up with Luffy in Gear 2nd? I think maybe he could, contend with them. Luffy would definitely be able to win anytime he wanted with Gear 4th or 5th, but, I think he could deal with him right now, right? Yeah, it would be better than last time where he just got punched in the face. He got Gumu Gumu no bulleted in the face and got dropped. And that was it, right? So, yeah, that's Kobe and Helmeppo. I've made dedicated videos about those guys before, so you go check that out. Let's see, what else? I did want to talk about Dahl. Okay, so Dahl is just the Vice Admiral of G14, the Marine base. Something about that, too, because I was confused by the numbering of the Marine bases. Like, how come there's, some of them are numbered, 1 and 2. Well, 1 is in the New World, 2 and 3 are in the Paradise side, and then 5 is in the New World. How does this make sense? And a lot of people actually suggested, it's probably the number on when they were issued or when they were built. And that actually does make a lot of sense when you think about it. So, Marine HQ was built first, so it doesn't have a number because it's HQ. And then G1 was the first Marine base in the New World, which also makes sense because, the red line's right in the center. So you want to make Marine HQ right here on the Paradise side and then make G1 on the opposite side because you have to protect the red port because the red port is how you get over the red line, how you gain access to Marijois. So it would make sense that Marine HQ and G1 were both on that side. Yes, G1 was in the New World. They weren't really focusing on the New World, though, or immediately after. Just that one base to protect the red port. They had to have that there. Then G2 and G3 are both in Paradise. We can assume G4 probably is as well. And then it wasn't until G5 that they finally built, a proper Marine base in the depths of the New World. Because G1 is so close to the red line, not a lot of pirates would get close to that place anyway. Because you get too close to the red line, then the world government, the Cypher Pole, you don't want to mess with them. So it is in the New World, but it's a less dangerous part of the New World than the rest of it. G5 was the first base that was probably in the wilds of the New World, which is why it's under such, it's really under serious repair. You can look at pictures of it. There's bandages on the Marine towers. It's all cracked and falling apart, and the Marines there aren't really well trained or anything. Smoker kind of put them into line, but you know what I mean? They're not the most well-equipped Marine base out there. It's kind of wild. The Marines there act a lot more like pirates than, Marines, honestly, right? And then G14, though, might actually, because that's a high number, that actually might be the newest Marine base ever built, or at least the newest one in the New World, right? And that's probably honestly why it looks so nice, because Vegapunk himself lives so close. Vegapunk probably had a hand in building the G14 base, okay? And then Dahl is, she's cool. She's got the hair. She's got the earrings. She's got the tattoo. She's got the spike collar. Yeah, she's probably into some rough stuff. You know what I mean, right? You don't want to get her mad. I just don't get the impression you want to get Dahl mad, right? So she's pretty cool. We just don't know much more about her yet. Maybe I will make a video about her at some point, but we just don't know anything else. Then Tashigi and Smoker. Tashigi's not a member of Sword. Smoker, I guess, isn't either. If she's not, I feel like they're a package deal. You know what I mean? So we actually don't know where Smoker's at. He might be visiting Egghead right now, which is what I think he's doing, because Smoker and Tashigi they're not really gonna separate. They're on the same ship, so I think maybe Smoker just hopped over to Egghead, so Luffy or the Straw Hats might run into him at some point. Maybe he's at Vegapunk's lab right now, something of that nature, right? So yeah, that's the situation with Sword. Then we have the whole thing with Aokiji, Garp, Sengoku, Smoker himself, maybe Kong is the leader of it, but I've talked about all that stuff before in other Sword videos. I guess they're just waiting on Drake, honestly. Sword really doesn't move unless the captain tells them to move or what to do, or a higher ranking member than the captain, so they're just waiting on Drake. That's why Groose is refusing to do anything, right? And in the meantime, they're still Marines, so they're going to probably show up at Egghead. They're probably going to interact with Luffy. I want Luffy to, I guess maybe that's the reason why Oda had Kobe removed from this arc, so that Kobe could not be reunited with Luffy. Instead, Kobe's at the Hachinosu right now, and so we're not going to have that moment, maybe not until later in the story. But we could still have Helmeppo meet with Luffy and talk. He's like, oh, Luffy, you have to help me come save Kobe. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe after the Egghead arc, if that's what we're calling it, after the Egghead arc, maybe we're going to head to Hachinosu. So maybe, like, you know, they have their adventure on Egghead, whatever that's going to be. They meet Vegapunk. Vegapunk explains everything to them. Maybe they fight the Seraphim or whatever. And then Helmeppo's like, Luffy, you're Kobe's friend. You have to come help me save him. And then Luffy is just like, okay, where's he at? He's like, he's on the Hachinosu where Blackbeard is. And Luffy might be like, Blackbeard. And so obviously he has a score to settle with him. And so it's like, okay, well, how far is Hachinosu? Now, unlike the situation with Vivi, where Vivi was like, we have no idea where she's at. Like, Alabasta's on the other side of the planet. Marijois so far away, and it's the head of the marine government and everything like that. So Hachinosu might just be like a hop, skip, and a jump from Egghead. It might not be that far. It actually might be one of the locations where Kid or Law went after Wano, right? So if that's the situation, Luffy might be like, okay, let's go fight against Blackbeard and rescue Kobe. So that might be the next arc, okay? And I also, like, Egghead arc, this might not even last that long. This arc might not even have, like, maybe Vegapunk or the Seraphim might be the main end, but they might not be, like a serious kind of threat. It might not be, like, I don't think the Egghead arc is going to last like 100 chapters. That's basically what I'm saying. Maybe like 30, 40 chapters maximum, and that's even kind of stretching it. Vegapunk explains like a lot of... I think this is going to be more of an exposition dump arc than an actual like full-on battle arc, where it's like, you know, Luffy and the gang have to team up with like Helmeppo or whatever and fight the rogue Seraphims or some shit, you know, or Vegapunk turns out to be evil. I don't think it's going to be anything like that. I think it's like Vegapunk's going to explain to them there are going to be some fights, but it's going to be a relatively short arc overall, right? Just to kind of introduce Vegapunk into the latter half of this story. So, yeah, that's the video, though. I don't think I have anything else for you today. What did you think of the new members of Sword, and what's their next prerogative going to be? I'm just saying, if their goal is to take down a Yonko, Blackbeard is the one that's the biggest threat. I mean, maybe the Marines might think that, you know, Buggy is a threat because Mihawk and Crocodile are allied with him, so they might get involved in this too at some point, but I would like to see Sword maybe team up with the Straw Hats at the end of this arc. That might be feasible. Like, Marines teaming up with Pirates, that's a big no-no. But Sword, on the other hand, that's sort of like a special little unit, so it's not like the same thing. It's like a special, like, you know, secret unit. It's also in contrast to Cypher Pole Aegis Zero, which Aegis means like a shield in Greek. So shield, sword, see where it goes. Sword! All right, that's the video. Thanks for watching, everybody. And now, moving on to Monkey Facts.
You got the funky monkey facts with Tekking101.
Okay, so hi everybody. I have to apologize. There was a little bit of an audio glitch in the last video where I was editing it, and I actually caught it in the edits where there was like an audio glitch, and then my audio went silent, and I thought I fixed it, and clearly I didn't, so I apologize for that. So yeah, the monkey facts just cut out when I was talking about mandrills. So we're going to attempt to talk about mandrills again. I hope the audio doesn't cut out this time. I had to dig my notes out of the trash, okay, from yesterday. Like, okay. So, mandrills are the largest monkey in the world, or one of the largest monkeys. Keep in mind, not apes. Apes, like gorillas, are a lot bigger. Mandrills are like 3 feet tall. They can weigh like 66 pounds. Gorillas are way bigger, like 5'5" on average. Some can even be higher than that, like 6 feet almost. And they can weigh upwards of like, I think it was like 370 pounds, okay? And so, yeah, if it's a fight between a gorilla and a mandrill, gorilla's probably going to win. But mandrills are pretty big for monkeys, okay? Also, for mammals in general, they're very brightly colored. You know how like human beings and a lot of other mammals, we don't really have like a very aposematic like coloring patterns, right? Like we're not bright blue or bright green or bright yellow like a lot of birds and reptiles and insects are, right? We're fairly like bland, honestly. But baboons, which mandrills are related to baboons, but you know, not as closely as they are related to drills. So there's drills and then there's mandrills. I thought that was funny. But yeah, mandrills, they have like the bright blue, bright pink, face and also their butts are also like that as well. So very brightly colored for mammals. They live in the area of the tropical forest of Africa. So like Central Africa around Equatorial Guinea, as well as Gabon, a little bit into Cameroon and the Congo. So like right around that little area right next to the Pacific, not the Pacific, that's the Atlantic. Right next to the Atlantic, which is right on the equator, which is where Africa gets the most like tropical rainforest like biome, like environment. They can travel a little bit north into the savanna, but mostly they tend to stay around the rainforest area. Gabon is actually where a lot of like you'll see like whenever you see like video footage on YouTube of like gorillas and stuff in Africa, typically it's around Gabon because that's just like a nice like forested kind of country. Let's see, what else? They have very expressive faces. They smile. They can make duck faces to, like, communicate. I saw one video on the internet with, like, one of these mandrills, like, rooting through some hay in a zoo, and it, like, was, like, looking for something, and it couldn't find it, and then it like, face palms itself. It's really funny. But yeah, that's the mandrill. Pretty interesting. And then there's the drill, which are like, their closest relative. And so, yeah, that's that. Hopefully, this one actually you can, listen to it. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking, signing out.